Good morning. Welcome back to Venture Daily, the fastest way to catch up on everything that matters in tech, startups, and venture capital.
Founders, funders, and fans of the future, this is your morning jolt of insight, news you can actually use, and guests who know their stuff. I'm Josiah Simons.
And I'm Jackson Fordyce. On today's show, Zuckerberg and Palmer Luckey have squashed the beef and are teaming up to build a combat VR headset called Eagle Eye for the U.S. Army.
The New York Times just cut a deal to license all of its content to Amazon for AI training while still suing OpenAI for doing the same thing without permission.
And fresh college grads are feeling the heat. AI is squeezing entry-level jobs, slowing hiring, and raising real questions about the future of white-collar work. It's Friday, May 30th. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting. All right, so imagine this, Josiah. You spent 4 years grinding through college, racking up debt, and finally, it's graduation day. You're in your cap and gown, your heart's pumping, you're waiting for that moment when your name is called.
Right.
But instead of a professor or dean announcing your name, it's your favorite. It's an AI voice triggered by scanning a QR code on your phone.
That's exactly what happened at Pace University's commencement ceremony last weekend. Graduates queued up, scanned their phones, and heard their names read aloud by a disembodied AI voice. And according to comments on social media, a similar thing is happening at Northeastern University, the University of Georgia, and Georgia Tech.
Some students likened it to a self-checkout experience at a grocery store. The university did inform students in advance and implemented a system to ensure accurate pronunciation for every student's name.
Right. So, Jackson, I've got a clip here posted to the Rundown AI's Instagram page of students walking across the stage at Pace University. Tell me what you think.
Kelly Danko. Sophia Cicero. Emily Acosta.
I feel like it's not that bad. I feel like the headline's way worse than it actually was.
Right. I think the headline sounds so scary, but in reality, it's like that just sounds like a normal guy's voice, and it's actually pronouncing the names correctly, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's either a dude you don't know or a dude you don't know. And so I'd rather the one that's going to pronounce my name correctly.
That's true. I did go to a high school graduation this week, and it was a real person. It wasn't an AI voice. And the energy in the room was great. So I wonder if in the room, actually there at Pace, maybe the energy's lacking a bit because of the AI voice. But yeah. I feel like from the perspective of just watching the video, it's really not that bad.
Yeah, so is this the future of graduations, or should some traditions remain untouched by technology, if this is even a tradition?
Right, if it is. Before we jump in, would you be okay with an AI announcing your name at graduation? Let us know in the comments.
I'm fine by it. I don't really care.
All right, before we jump in, I want to tell you about Public.
Our favorite.
If you take investing seriously, you need to know about Public.com. That's where you can invest in everything: stocks, options, bonds, crypto. You can earn some of the highest yields in the industry, like the 7% or higher yield you can lock in with a bond account. Public is a FINRA-registered, SIPC insured platform that takes your investments as seriously as you do. Fund your account in 5 minutes or less at public.com/venture and get up to $10,000 when you transfer your old portfolio. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosure in the podcast description. Check out our link, public.com/venture. Let the lovely people down at Public know who sent you, the guys here at Venture Daily.
Kisses to public.com/venture. All right, today, Josiah, the first story today. Today's defense tech headline reads like a sci-fi redemption arc. Meta, the same company that fired Palmer Luckey 8 years ago, is now teaming up with him to build a combat-grade VR headsets for the U.S. Army.
Yeah, Palmer Luckey, founder of Oculus and now CEO of Anduril, has spent the last several years building some of the most cutting-edge military technology in the world. And now he's back in business with Meta to launch what they're calling Eagle Eye, a next-gen wearable system for the battlefield.
But this isn't just a souped-up VR headset. According to Luckey, Eagle Eye is a fully integrated ballistic shell. It's got hearing protection, vision protection, onboard compute, AI networking, radios, and augmented vision sensors that can detect drones miles away or identify hidden enemies in complex terrain.
And here's the kicker. This whole system is being built off of Meta's $60 billion investment into Reality Labs, the same AR/VR division that spent years building products like the Quest for consumers. Palmer says the partnership with Meta is a no-brainer as it allows Anduril to avoid spending billions of taxpayer dollars on recreating something Meta has already built in the private sector.
Exactly. In Palmer's words, it's taking people who've been working on consumer AR/VR and adapting that work to solve national security problems at a very low cost to the taxpayer. He says they've been working on Eagle Eye behind closed doors for the past year, and now it's ready.
Right. This is Meta's biggest step yet into defense. They've recently hired former Pentagon staff, opened their AI models to military applications, and now they're bidding for a $100 million Army contract alongside Anduril, their new partner. If they win it, it could be a key piece of a much larger $22 billion Army wearables program.
For a deeper dive into the story, I called our friend Ross Fubini.
I'm Ross Fubini. I'm the founder and managing director here at XYZ Venture Capital. We were excited to be Anduril's seed investor and excited to talk about their work today.
In recent months, Meta has brought on former Pentagon officials to help navigate the complex world of military contracts and defense procurement. And now the tech giant has teamed up with Anduril. So I asked Ross, why does Meta have a newfound interest in winning defense contracts? And why do you think Zuckerberg chose Palmer Luckey and Anduril as his go-to partner?
Two reasons. The first is I think that Mark cares about the adoption of VR systems. I think the dominant way, the first big wave of adoption is going to be through the DoD and through enterprises, even ahead of consumer. And Mark wants to be part of that. He wants his technology being used to solve real problems in the real world. And that's going to be through the government and through enterprises. Second reason is Anduril is best positioned in the world as a company to get this kind of technology adopted fast. They understand how to deliver to the government, how to get technology in the hands of warfighters in a really meaningful way. So it's a perfect combination.
Makes sense. VR on the battlefield. When I think of VR, I think of what I've seen in Call of Duty. I envision advanced warfare and futuristic soldiers, not necessarily only being used for headsets for watching a movie while sitting on my couch.
Right. It's not just about playing a video game on the couch in your living room.
Yeah.
I feel like the future of these wearables has always been, in my mind at least, for the military. And I mean, if you're Zuckerberg, you probably want to prove that your tech has serious utility beyond just gaming or the metaverse. And Palmer Luckey's the guy who knows how to get it into action fast.
Yeah, the tech is currently not easy to create, though. Military headsets need to be extremely precise and functional. They can't be bulky, having distracting glitches, or causing soldiers to feel motion sickness. All problems with Microsoft's recent attempt at a military headset that failed a couple years ago. And so I asked Ross, how does Meta and Anduril's Eagle Eye differ from previous military wearables?
Well, first, I think not throwing up is a goal all of us want when we're using video games at home. And it's the same goal that people have when they're using their headsets as part of moving the battlefront forward. The thing to know is the technology platform here, both on the hardware and the software side, has just changed dramatically because of the years of trying to get this technology adopted. And you can see that from the consumer products that are so much better. So now we're going to see those consumer products delivered in an enterprise, in a government hardened environment, but with world-class software.
Goal number one, don't puke. Honestly, it's pretty solid a starting point for Battlefield tech.
Yeah, and it sounds like Meta and Anduril are basically taking the best of consumer VR, then leveling it up for the military. Less glitchy headset, more mission-ready hardware.
And this time, no Xbox controller required. Josiah, when the story first came out, I reached out to defense tech insiders that I know for their take, and I heard a few people say that they were a bit confused about the value proposition of this partnership. And so I asked Ross for his take on what he thinks Meta and Anduril each stand to gain from this collaboration.
I don't know the details on the inside, but it's quite obvious on the outside that Anduril knows how to deliver hardware and software OSs to the government. They understand the contracting process. They understand the user process. They have the compliance and controls to go do those things. And it's unquestionable that Meta has an amazing platform for enabling development in these environments. So I think there's a natural coming together of those things. And it really is a shared vision that both Palmer and Zuck clearly have of getting this technology onto humans. It just happens that this is now an opportunity to get it out faster through the combination.
It's hard to know what exact value prop Anduril and Meta see in this play, but it's easy to see why they're the best two companies in the business to join forces for this project.
For sure.
And Josiah, and I also wanted to ask Ross, do you think VR and AR headsets could actually make a difference on the battlefield? Ross says absolutely, yes.
The data is immensely, by the way. So one place is, it's not just the battlefield, it's the logistics officer that's turning a lug nut that says, hey, you missed this step. It's someone that's out in the field trying to fix a Humvee for the first time, and there's a display that shows them what to go configure to get their system up and running. So it's every part about that experience, all the way to the heads-up display that eventually shows a warfighter, you're going this way in the fog of war. Here's where the path is. Here's where the enemy fire is that I've detected. I suspect we'll see the former before the latter, but both are going to be really important. And it's just clearly the case to make our government and our defense teams more efficient and ultimately safer.
I'm sold. And for my last question, I was curious about the broader trend we're seeing of tech giants making defense plays. And so I asked Ross, what does this partnership specifically signal about Silicon Valley's evolving relationship with the U.S. military?
I think we just got a continual change in technology wanting to find its way into the government to build better solutions, period. And that can be all the way to the warfighter, to the back end person, to hopefully it gets delivered to better Social Security, check delivery to Medicare, brokers for our parents. And I think this is technology and technologists showing up, trying to build a better government for citizens and just ultimately help Americans, which is just the best thing. And I think what everybody should want to happen.
Thank you to Ross Fubini for joining Venture Daily. All right, next story. Amazon just signed a deal with the New York Times to license its content for generative AI. Yes, the same New York Times that's currently suing OpenAI and Microsoft for allegedly scraping millions of Times articles without permission to train their models.
This is a huge pivot. Instead of fighting in court, the Times is now cutting a check meets checkmate kind of deal, giving Amazon access to all content from the Times, The Athletic, and New York Times Cooking. That means Alexa might soon serve up just not just weather updates, but Times reporting, recipes, and sports coverage, all trained into Amazon's chatbots.
And it's more than just Alexa. Amazon's planning to use this data to sharpen its foundation models across the board. Because let's be real, there's only so much Reddit, Wikipedia, and Common Crawl to go around. The next frontier is proprietary, high-quality data.
What's in it for the Times? Distribution, new audiences, and a revenue model that finally makes sense in the AI era. Plus, it helps frame them as a premium content provider, one that doesn't give its archives away for free, but licenses them like oil to fuel the next generation of AI.
This deal could also set the tone for how media orgs approach AI going forward. Partner early, get paid, and shape how your content is used rather than just suing your way through the disruption.
So the question is, are these licensing deals going to become the new normal? And if so, which media giants are next?
For more on that, I called Matt McRoberts.
My name is Matt McRoberts. I'm the Chief Business Officer at an agentic AI infrastructure company called Aampe.
So the New York Times has just licensed content to Amazon for AI training. So I asked Matt, what does this signal to you about where the market is heading in terms of sourcing high-quality data for foundation models?
It's a great question, isn't it? Because there's probably no better source of high quality editorial content than the Gray Lady in the New York Times. You know, they've done a great job, obviously, over the last several decades, leveraging technology to continue to accelerate their business. Look at how prolific their digital business is. And so dipping their proverbial toe into Gen AI and doing it with the bellwether that is Amazon, there's probably not a better partner to, again, is enter the market with. So net positive for both companies. I'm really bullish on the guardrails associated with this. And so again, as I think it's all boats rise for the macro market as it relates to media starting to really lean into Gen AI as we know it.
It feels like a big moment. If the New York Times is licensing its content for AI, that kind of sets the bar for what premium data means in the next wave.
Yeah, and doing it with Amazon, no less. The Times' decision to be the first in line for this seems like a power move, to be the primary media brand and resource that shapes the voices of these models.
Right. Given the ongoing lawsuits against OpenAI and others, I asked Matt, do you think these kinds of licensing deals are going to become table stakes for AI companies moving forward?
Table stakes is an interesting way to frame it in the sense of, will a new dimension of business development continue to drive these media companies as technology continues to disrupt and transform their business? 100%. Will they need to do these deals and will they become table stakes? Probably, in the sense of how content will be distributed. Per that earlier comment, as it relates to guardrails, everything's going to need to be effectively governed. And so when you get the Amazons of the world and the New York Times collaborating to develop a blueprint, again, it's going to be an important milestone in the continued maturity of something like this. And so as we work towards table stakes, here lies a blueprint, a template to start to learn from.
Could definitely be the beginning of a new standard.
Right. If Amazon and Times are building the blueprint, every other AI company might soon feel like they have to follow suit just to stay legit, especially with those lawsuits looming.
And so for my last question for Matt, I asked from a product perspective, do you see value in integrating premium editorial content like the New York Times into AI interfaces, or does it introduce more complexity than it's worth?
Hey, Alexa has been around for a while as it relates to Amazon, and its ability to curate certain elements of your day and drive personalization is, I think we'd all say, hey, yeah, there's a net positive there. To have it potentially, again, is pulling content that may be relevant to your particular lifestyle is I think a really interesting use case. And in addition, hey, it's going to expose new subscribers to, the New York Times franchise, which feels like, again, when you look at business development and the shared agenda, it feels like there's a potentially powerful partnership there to, again, is drive new subscribers in this new kind of digital and now Gen AI age.
Awesome. Matt McRoberts, thanks for coming on the show, man. Last segment of the day.
Yeah.
We're going back to graduation season. And while caps are flying, job offers are not. A new report from Oxford Economics reveals that recent college grads are facing a tougher job market than expected, and artificial intelligence might be to blame.
That's right. The study shows that the unemployment among 22 to 27-year-olds with a bachelor's degree has climbed up nearly 6%, outpacing the national average of just over 4%. Economist Matthew Martin points out that entry-level white-collar jobs, once a reliable stepping stone, are increasingly being automated.
The shift is being dubbed a white-collar recession, where AI isn't just replacing factory workers, but is now encroaching on office jobs traditionally held by recent grads. Roles in tech, finance, and even law are being affected as AI systems become more capable.
Historically, technological advancements have created new job categories, even as they rendered others obsolete. But the AI revolution feels different. The rapid pace of AI development is outstripping the job market's ability to adapt, leaving new grads in a precarious position.
And it's not just about job availability. The value proposition of a 4-year degree is under scrutiny. As AI takes over tasks that were once entry-level responsibilities, the return on investment for a college education is being questioned. So what does that mean for the class of 2025 and beyond? I invited Chad Metcalf on the show to talk about it.
I'm Chad Metcalf. I am the CEO of Continue.
So the Oxford report points to AI displacing entry-level white-collar jobs. So I asked Chad, what kinds of roles are most vulnerable right now, and how quickly is this trend accelerating?
I think right now AI is kind of hitting pause on a lot of jobs, and junior folks go first. And so I'd say like fresh out of college is happening. I don't know how it's going to accelerate. I do think what we're going to see is there's going to be a pause in the market. And then, in my opinion, it's going to reset in a number of, well, hopefully a shorter period, but potentially a longer period. And then we're going to feel this for years, the same way you would with like the trade, stopping in China. And then when it comes back, it still takes a couple of months for that to happen. Right now, we're pausing on all these junior folks who should be getting, their first gigs, should be getting experience. And folks are pausing on them because they're asking questions about like, is AI actually capable of doing this on its own? I think it's going to reset in a number of months or years, but we're going to feel it for a while.
Man, it is a tough time to be graduating college right now. Not only are you competing with other entry-level workers for a job, but you also have to compete with AI that is much cheaper for a company than your wages are.
Yeah, and of course, companies are hesitating to invest in early entry-level talent while they wait to see just how far AI can go. That uncertainty could be costing a whole generation their launch pad.
It's rough, but on the bright side, tech innovation has historically created more jobs than it's destroyed. Think the invention of cars and how many jobs that created. But the conversation around AI taking people's jobs feels more heightened than ever. So I asked Chad, do you think the AI-driven shift is something different than we've seen before, especially for recent college grads?
I mean, I've been in part of like the big data push. I was part of, containerization and Docker. So I saw that go. This is definitely fast. And I think, what's really interesting is people evaluate AI technology on basically new projects. And so they look at it and they see the speed at which it can generate something new. And then they get excited, like, we're not going to have software folks anymore. And then at some point they have to go back and update something that's not new. And then they say like, oh, so I think what you see is enthusiasm around startups that are getting a lot of value out of it. The organizations within these organizations that are evaluating AI who are basically not evaluating on the existing, they're evaluating on net new projects. And so you see a lot of enthusiasm because it's very useful there. And then you see what happens when it hits like a legacy code base. And I think that's where we're going to see like a realignment of expectations.
Josiah, another highlight of the story is how the unemployment gap between college grads and non-grads is shrinking. And I feel it's a relevant question for a lot of young people right now. Is college actually worth it? And so I asked Chad, do you think the value proposition of a 4-year degree is fundamentally changing?
Yes and no. I was a biologist before I became a computer scientist. So effectively, I didn't use my college degree, except I think like learning how to learn is still important. Now, whether or not you need to go to college for that, I'm not sure. But especially in computer science, what you learn in school and what you learn on your first day is typically very different. Like you learn a lot of theory and then you get a lot of practical. And so I think that there is probably going to be some amount of deference in this, but in the future with AI, the way that we see it at Continue is the developers are actually going to do less like menial work and they're going to up level, which I think actually they probably would want to go to school for, because a lot of the things that you're going to learn about algorithms and sort of the higher level architecture bits, that's probably going to happen. At least the fundamentals are going to happen at a lower level.
Right. So he said learning how to learn, still really matters. And I totally agree. And for a second, can I just get on my soapbox about college?
Please.
So Jackson and I went to the same college, the King's College in New York City. It doesn't exist anymore, but don't worry about that. We loved it. It was the absolute greatest 4 years of our life, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And if you can afford it, it's a great experience. Do it. But if you cannot afford college, don't force it. You do not need to go into debt. Go to your local community college. Pay your way through school. Leave with no debt. It's scary and sad how much people are hamstringing their own futures because this whole bet on yourself mentality. Someone tells them, go get that degree, take all the debt, because the job you'll get after you go to 4 years of college will be worth the debt you took on. And it's in most cases, that's not true. I mean, look at the amount of student debt in our country right now. So my personal soapbox is don't do that. Go to community college.
Don't go to college.
Don't go to college unless you can afford it. And if you can't afford it, do it because it's great.
We're gonna clip that. Don't go to college.
Extremely important to learn how to learn. But I know not everyone's going to agree with this take, but I feel like now more than ever, I feel like young people need to have their eyes wide open to the scam that taking out student loans almost always is.
Yeah, and for those of you in college, you've probably noticed the disruption AI is causing in the job market. And maybe you don't feel prepared fully. So I asked Chad, what should universities, policymakers, and employers be doing now to prepare the next wave of graduates for an AI-transformed job market?
You're also going to get this new set of folks going into these big companies who are using these or who want to use these tools, and you got to get ahead of it, because what you don't want, if you're a big company or a university that has data that you don't want to go places, you're going to want to give people a path for them to use these tools so that they're not just swiping their own credit card and sending your data over to whoever. So I think that it is important. It is the process of writing software is changed. It's done. It's changed. And looking forward, I think you just have to decide what that means for your organization, and then get the tools that you're going to allow into the people's hands so they can use the right things at the right times.
Thank you to Chad Metcalf for being on the show.
That's it for Venture Daily today. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We hope we helped you get a little bit smarter.
And thank you to Content Stack here in Austin, Texas, for letting us use your space to film the show. And if you like the show today, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, X, leave us a like, a comment, and a review. Throw us a 5-star rating if you think we've earned it. And as always, we'll see you Monday morning on Venture Daily.